Peace and wellness, beautiful souls, magnificent beings. What have I told you that religion is the longest and greatest psychological operation ever endured and pressed upon man? In this video, we'll break down the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We'll break down why his assassination is indeed likely tied to this conflict in Iran, which he opposed, and we'll break down a number of things that will expose our government for what it is and what we're up against. Allow us to dive in.
MAGA has never seen a declarative victory, and I can tell you right now, our MAGA base does not want a war at all whatsoever. They do not want U.S. involvement. They do not want the United States to be engaged in this. And let's just go 569. This is a picture of the Iraq shock and awe bombing, you might remember. It felt as if we were going to steamroll Iraq, and this would be like a 2-month operation similar to the Persian Gulf War back in 1991. But the Middle East has a tendency to draw you in.
He has it wrong when it comes to this idea. And let me preface this by saying I'm not a fan of Charlie Kirk, but I was appalled at seeing him executed, and I understand that it's much deeper than the narrative that they've given us. It is more tied to these foreign conflicts, specifically Iran, that he opposed, that he went up against Netanyahu and told Trump to not get involved. A few months later, he's gone. A few months after he's gone, they're in Iran bombing and starting a war. So it's much deeper than what the FBI have put forth. Charlie had a major voice in the conservative movement. He was one of the reasons that Trump won. But it appears that Trump and his administration sold him out, and he's no longer with us. This is my take. This is what I see. Allow him to continue.
A land of sand and death, as President Trump would say. The last major war that America clearly and definitively won is the Gulf War. And even that led to the Second Iraq War. Before that, it was World War II. And the Korean War, you could argue, had some real good upside with the creation of South Korea. Wars are...
This is the amazing part about the Christians, which he is, and this so-called Christian nation. They are enamored with war, but they say that they follow a man who was nonviolent, a man who was anti-war, a man that turned the other cheek. These individuals go into war over and over and over again. We have been in a constant state of war, even though it may not have been declared, with all the bombings that this United States government has did over the past 50 years. All the overthrows of governments, all the so-called establishing of democracies that never work in these nations, because you and I do not have a democracy where we live at this point in time. You and I, those of us who are in the middle class and below, and even some of the more wealthy individuals who are not in the top 10%, you have the illusion of a democracy. You and I, we live in a controlled state, allowed to have certain freedoms, allowed to engage in activities that strike up dopamine hits so that we can look at what it is that we have going on and see that our government is corrupt, but look beyond it because we have these creatures. But these things will come to an end sooner or later because of the recklessness and the disregard for the American people that this government actually has. But again, you hear Christians, just like Charlie, in this state, always applauding wars, even though he stood against the Iran war. It makes no sense. Allow him to continue.
Not profitable endeavors. And even from a pro-Israel standpoint, Israel does not benefit from long conflicts or long wars. The shorter the conflict, the better it has always been for Israel. That's why they prefer deceptive, immediate, and violent action.
And that is a breakdown of another religious state that is so-called the chosen people of God. Again, the Christians, many of you will repeat that foolishness that the Israelis or the Jews that live in Israel are the chosen people of God. First, allow us to break it down. A Jew is not a race. It is not an ethnicity either. either. It is a religious designation just as a Christian is. If you and I was to be privy to the investigation of the coroner finding human remains that are just bones, and he does or she does the autopsy on those bones, trying to figure out the race, the sex of that individual, you would never find bones that would tell you that this individual is Jewish, that this individual is Christian, that this individual is Muslim. You will find a designation of either black, white. You find a designation of either Middle Eastern, African. You'll find a designation of North America, South American heritage. You will not find anywhere in an autopsy of bones that have been destroyed that cannot be identified with a marker stating that these individuals are of a Jew race, because there is no race. It is a religious distinction, all right, designation. So again, we must come to understand that most of you who claim Christianity, most of you are blind in your faith. Most of you will say that God said this, God said that. No, the men who wrote those books said what they said. The men that told you in that book that the Jew were and are the chosen people of God was a man that wrote that. Not a God, not the handwriting of the God of who they say they represent, but a man wrote that as being fact. And he's the only one that received that message, according to him. Again, you see how arbitrary that is? It is not objective, and it is from the mind of men. And this is why all religions have caused total chaos across the planet, and they continue to do so. And wars are waged in the name of these religions. If your God is so powerful, why do you have to kill so many innocent human beings in order to get your point across? Can't your God conquer people without killing innocent men, women, and children, without causing tens of millions of lives to be lost due to war? Make it make sense. Blind faith is an immature way to live your life. You must and I must wake and become a student of life, not a follower of blind traditions and religious dogma.